I just learned of the death of Gordon Bell, who was an early engineer at Digital Equipment Corporation. And later in life, he became involved in something called My Life Bits, where he was doing what we now call lifelogging, that is, keeping track of his everyday life in a digital way. This was a great inspiration for me because, as you can see, I'm big into saving all my old stuff and, in a sense, logging my life, creating a story from my life. He was doing this partly as a realization of an earlier article written by Vannevar Bush in 1945, in which Dr. Bush considered the idea of what he called the Memex, a device that would capture all of the details of one's lives. Now, that was 1945. Dr. Bell started his work in My Life Bits in, I believe, 1998. And I had the great fortune to interview him in 2013 on June 26th. That was for an article that came out in Communications of the ACM about a month later. And I wanted to share that interview because he really has been an inspiration for me. And with his passing, I wanted to honor his memory. And hopefully the interview will give you some inspiration as well. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, fine.
Hi.
I don't have any video. I'm sorry.
That's actually good because it'll just ruin our whole internet experience, our whole bandwidth. So thank you so much for being available to talk with me. And I hope you don't mind. I'm recording this so I could be sure that I get the quotes right, and I'll be taking notes as we go. Is that okay?
That's great.
Okay. I suppose of all the people, you would be the least likely to object to that.
Right.
So one thing that interests, and by the way, when all of this is done, I'll be sending your quotes back to you along with any details about your specific project, anything that I write about your specific project. So you will have a chance to go over and make corrections and so on. When that happens, it'll have to be pretty fast because I usually send them back to quote sources at the same time as I submit them, as I submit the first draft to my editors. But you should have a day or two anyway.
Right.
And then when it comes out, although I'm sure you get the communications anyway, I'll send you a PDF.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So one thing that interests me about the My Life Bits project is a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing basically starts right now. You know, it starts with recording what's going on. And it looks like what you're doing is also a lot of personal archiving where you're digitizing old stuff. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. In fact, that's how I started. I wanted to go back and get all of the various kinds of histories of things that I had done, companies I'd worked with or on, and basically to have a record, especially articles and books that I could scan, that I could use as part of my memory. But I think what's happening today is people are just starting that way. They don't realize the need for any history, but as they go along, they will get history. I tell my stepdaughter, who's now, I don't know, 22 or so, started doing this. I said, don't ever delete anything. And I swear that she went through about six grades, including college, or 2 or 3 years of high school, and repurposed the same damn article that she had written about beat poets.
About what?
Actually, about the San Francisco beat poets. About 10 times. There's a danger in being able to save all of your bits, and that to me is one of the funniest ones, because I said, wait, you're writing another article about that? Yeah. So you just go from, this is something that kids can do.
Yeah. Well, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got as a writer was write once, sell many times.
Yeah. Okay.
So good on your daughter
Okay.
for that. Um, and I'm sort of breaking away from my role as the reporter person. It's actually an issue of personal interest for myself. I've always been an obsessive archivist, and actually in my house, which is not huge, I have a separate archive room,
Mm.
and have been struggling with a few years about how to how to best capture this. And I'm not as famous or interesting as a Gordon Bell, so I sort of have to figure it out on a purely consumer basis. Let's start from there. What have you learned in your experience, and what do you think that people like me could take away from it?
Uh, well, I mean, you're exceptional because you realize that that's what's going on. And then in fact you are in a funny way, as I call it, what people like a number of us are we're basically librarians of our lives. So we really uh, are care about that for whatever reason, for reflection, or but I guess mine really started out as this kind of a curiosity of in a research sense of, well, gee, how much information do you accumulate every year? How do you go about that? In fact, my first article was in the communications of the ACM in 2000, I think January 2001, which is um, when we thought we knew a lot about it at the time. In fact, I'd say that was kind of the first or second epiphany of maybe the first one was, can I do it? And then at that point was, yeah, I can do it. Now the problem is, how do I organize it and get it back? And then as we progress uh, through, I'd say 2005, why we started capturing more and more. And what I just sent you was a taxonomy because uh, I should have put the taxonomy out a lot earlier because it gets very, very confusing. Because when people talk about life logging, they very often migrate immediately to Google Glass or to Steve Mann, where you're actually recording uh, everything you see. Now we use the Bill Gates quote a lot, which is someday you'll be able to which is from '95. Someday you'll be able to record everything you see and hear. But and that was kind of a mantra. And then also, of course, the other mantra was we're going to build mimics. And in fact, that's we did. In fact, build mimics. But in doing that, it's I haven't yet found to the point where seeing and hearing everything is that critical, although, or is that as much value as if you look at the taxonomy, that's way down in terms of intensity of what you're doing, as opposed to, gee, just what I call this life logging, implicit life logging of just let your computer uh, record it. Don't ever delete anything from your computer, and especially use an email system that, in fact, logs the stuff on your computer, whatever it is, Outlook or
And
any.
I'm sorry, this is something that you do believe in, or that you think results in
I
too
do,
much data?
I do believe in that.
Hmm.
I believe that you have a mail system that, I mean, you can use any of the public mail systems, but I think it's critical that you have all of that mail on your hard drive, because you don't know what's going to happen to that, and as you switch to something else, I'm still pretty much I want my life on a hard drive, but the later sort of epiphanies were we went. In fact, I'll send you the sort of stages of epiphanies that we've gone through. By the way, when is the article due?
My deadline is the 2nd of July, so it's really not that long. It's about a week.
Okay, look, I'm going to give a keynote talk on to the thing called ISTIS, IEEE ISTIS, which is the I don't know, society and whatever in Toronto before that, and I'll send you the written part of that sort of got these levels of epiphanies, the starting of and how I sort of sequenced through it, because I'm really in those I'm projecting out several, but most recently or I would say in around the 2010 or so, it was like, gee, my life is now, or not my life, but many people's lives are now totally distributed. They're out there in public and on Facebook and all of that. And we're not Emil and I are not advocates of being so circumspect. We're more circumspect about where we want our lives, and so Facebook is, to its credit, I think, is realizing, and I heard there was a quote today, and I think in the New York Times about people Zuckerberg saying, "Hey, this is really the memory of your life," and so he picked up this thing that he's really got he's making a public memory out there, for everything, and particularly when he includes the timeline. So anyway, that's one. That's a particular way of recording your life. That if you sort of blabber it all over Facebook, but I still believe that you want your own private hard copy. There's more to your life than what you put on Facebook.
Right. Hold on a second. I'm writing that down.
And so we've been very, very much be very careful what you when blogging peaked, which was, I think, maybe before Facebook was maybe 2007, 2008, that people were just going out of their way to have blogs and to go and claim anything they could as their own little broadcasting systems, and then Facebook that took over that role so that it's then it's a communication thing where they're talking with their friends and blabbering everything.
Right. As I say, this is an area of intense personal interest for me, and as a matter of fact, when I proposed this story, another related story that I proposed was about what I've called the great black hole of personal history from 1995 to what I expect to be 2020 or 2025, when people start realizing what's going on, that people don't have any records of these things. And I've struggled with that, as I say myself. I built I actually through some very complicated steps was able to move my live journal over to a Drupal site that I have stored on my own, and but the process of doing that showed just how hard it is to collect all of these bits and pieces that have been broadcast out on places like Facebook. And as somebody who's doing this personally, not only for the reporting point of it, I'm wondering what kind of structure you find it useful to keep this information in, and how do you get stuff over to that? How resource intensive is it? What's the procedure?
Okay, I guess there's two. There are two questions there. Of one is how do you organize your life? Suppose we didn't have Facebook, and suppose it were just on a hard drive, and that you had control of all this information. which is basically the model that I started with, which was that things are going to end up on a hard drive. So that's one question. The second question is, what do you do now when it's everywhere? And in that regard, there's a company called Social Safe, and I think there may be more that goes out and grabs and brings all of that material and collects it and brings it back onto your hard drive. And that's a company. In fact, I it's a company in England, and I can point you to them.
I'm just going there now. Oh, Social Safe.
Yes.
And this is actually a company I thought of starting, so I'm glad you pointed me to it because
Okay.
now I won't. I'll look at what they do.
And anyway, they're a little company in the UK that's going out and really pulling all of that stuff from Twitter and Yammer and all of the various places and keeping that in a form that can be used, can be retrieved, and also and it has some control, allows some control in there too. But anyway, so that's one that's one thing that's really I think important and that I felt was important, and it turned out the founder of the company found me, and in fact the company's just gotten another round of financing, and so they're I think they've got the right approach that's happening there. Now, the other question is sort of how you organize stuff, and that's we didn't get into that enough in our book, but because it really kind of gets into a kind of an intensity, a more intense thing. And but the model I have is the model of the psychology. I thought I had invented it, but then it was called. I called it lives. So you have these independent.
I'm sorry. It's a model of psychology. Psychologists. I
Yeah,
missed part.
yeah. It's called autobiographical memory, and there's a. I can't remember I have the article. In fact, I can send you the article on autobiographical
I'd
memory.
love that if you would.
It was and it was something that I had used, which was basically I had called those lives, and that what we live in is we end up in a bunch of independent lives, and those lives they can be a company, they can be a sports team, but they sort of come and go. They're really quite independent. You have a work life. You have at a given time you may be working for an organization, and you have a life with that, and then sometimes you can break. Those lives are so complex that you break them down into you really are into a project team that may last several years, and those things come and go. But within that, then there's a hierarchy of sort of canonical kinds of activities. I mean, depending on what life it is, you've got if you've got an autobiographical memory of your family, then there's a certain set of things that you do with a bunch of canonical things that you do there. And then the and then within, for example, you have a birthday. Kind of you have these are kind of like objects that you've got an object oriented thing that's basically a birthday, and then now we're talking about an instance of a birthday, that particular birthday, and so on. So and a project looks that way too, sort of beginning and celebrations and ends and meetings and things like that, and so life is really this sort of essentially these different kinds of classes and objects, and that's how things go.
So if you don't mind me getting a little bit into the nitty gritty, how is this actually stored? What programs are you using?
Well, okay, there's two things. One is when we started out, actually, that's the article that we wrote, the CACM article that we wrote, I think in January 2005, was really went into that. We had a database. We had the My Life Bits database. We used SQL, and basically we ran that program until about 2007. In which case we really that's when we stopped the project. Be, and then now I don't use any particular program, but it's all it's all available. Uh, uh, it's all I just use standard Windows as my basically as my searching. But the main thing that's going on here is this notion of autobiographical memories is how things are stored. That is, you have these lives that you know, each of the 20 years. So there's a
I'm sorry, you just broke up. Could you repeat that last sentence? The notion of autobiographical memory is about.
so you know so my life. I found out that my life generally was broken into 6 year periods, and so I had essentially a bunch of different lives that I had been in, and so pretty much the filing is in terms of all of those lives, so that and they're really quite orthogonal. That there's not much interaction from one to the other. So I have a work life, but you've got the one thing you do have is this sort of family life that goes over a longer period, and then you have these lives within these various events within those lives, but within a family life. But then the other one is the sort of work life that you have. You've got one. You're now doing a lot of work with the ACM, and so there'll be a life there, and so on. But anyway, it's the that's the basic way by which I'm organized, and I think that's the way most people think of their think of themselves and their lives.
Okay, I'm just writing this down.
I mean, that's really critical to have a kind of having a nice model of your life, so you can uh, uh, basically can retrieve it that way.
Okay, so we have these threads. Now, when I've thought about storing this sort of stuff for myself, um, what I usually end up doing is breaking items in my life into, for example, this object is a person object, and of course there are instances of the person object. There's
Sure,
person event, and I don't think this is a. I think this is a fairly common way to look at things.
sure,
Person, event, place, and so forth. And
sure.
so that if I have lunch with a friend at a local restaurant, then I have all three of those things. I have person, place, time, and so on. Is there a similar structure for the way you're doing it, or are you just? It sounds like you're just taking the objects and putting them in boxes without that much kind of
Well,
deconstruction.
right. Well, an event like that, a luncheon kind of thing, whether you have a life with that other person or not, that's probably not a life as such, unless you have it's a longer term, really close friend that exists. You may have that life with that particular individual, particularly if it's somebody that you're married to or you've been with for. Those are, I'd say, those are more the other lives. Probably that that luncheon event, as an event, would just be stored as a photograph, generally about things, and probably never gets into what I would call a really filed thing. It's photos, and in fact, are these sort of instances that are there, and these are overall glimpses of your life overall.
So
Uh,
it sounds like whereas something like Memoto or a lot of the quantified self people and really a lot of the life logging are collecting very specific objects. You're really looking at threads. You're looking at stories over time. It sounds like.
yeah, that a way that when you got something that you've been in a long term, uh, I'm yeah, I guess I'm looking at things more of a lasting, uh, where this collected set of events actually result in something. So, in my case, I tend to look at it as maybe my his my interest in the history of computing, and in that regard, I've got a uh, it ends up being uh, something there uh, that that's I'd say is more um, that that, is, that there's a let's see, how do I say a life? A life, it's got usually there's an organization, there's some kind of an organizational framework associated with that. That is, you're a member of this group. The group has a purpose, and that you're on the board of something that then tends to be a longer life. It's a place where you really do have to file a collected thing, and that is and when you can look at that over time, and where you can identify output with that. My interest in supercomputing, for example, is one of those lives, and I've got a long term interest in that, and I have maybe a couple thousand documents in that folder. So you really end up these lives really end up with, I'd say, more than just photos, that they end up with sort of records of your behavior and your relationships with over time. So that's really I'd say the difference of what that is.
Okay, I know that we're really running out of time. I was wondering if you've talked about epiphanies, and I look forward to seeing
Yeah.
that talk.
Yeah.
Um, Now, how many years have you been doing this?
It really started in sort of 1997 or so, and the one of the crystallizing events was when Raj Reddy said, "Can I scan all the books you've written?" And then from that, because I had been starting to dabble in the idea of paperlessness. I wanted to get rid of paper,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe with the idea there of capturing everything capturing stuff. But it was really Raj that sort of crystallized that, and then I started seeing how that was, and then that culminated in 2001 with a little article about storing everything.
That's the
For
article in CACM.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the two articles, I'd say that kind of the two best articles are in the ACM that we wrote. One, the first one, and then that one sort of saying, "Gee, the big problem is now, even though we had organized stuff, the big problem is then getting it back." Um, but anyway, it was a nice, that was a great start to have it all come together, and then that's that's the one. In fact, when I started out, no database at all, and then the I was worked with Jim Gray when we set up the lab in the research lab in San Francisco, and Jim said use a database. When I was started recording this stuff or started scanning, I started scanning everything. I said I'm going to get rid of all my videotapes that people have sent me that I have of me. Scan all my books, scan all my banker boxes of papers, everything I could. And then and Jim said, use the database. And I said, hey, I don't even know what the columns are in the database. I'll just put them in a folder. And then that's how I used the folder system I used was really the one I told you about, these organization of lives in different categories. And then and by the way, I can send you this sort of map of lives I've got that are every 6 years.
Oh, please do. That would be wonderful.
And then, and then in 2001, we started a full blown project. There were three of us. Jim Gemmell was the lead on that, and that's when we used SQL, and we said, let's put everything in the SQL database, and that was really the start of the project. And as an organization, as let's organize it, and that helped immensely in terms of searching and organization. It was just quite beautiful, and kind of the epiphany of that one was in 2005. I gave a talk to the database, the big ACM database group. I don't remember, SIGDA. I guess that was what it was, and and what I said to them was, what we created is a transaction processing system for your life. That is, every what you're trying to get to is every event you have in your life is logged in some way. You can get every keystroke, and now, by the way, where I'm at is every heartbeat. So all of this is sort of, you're every timestamp you're trying to log in some way, and that can be correlated with anything, something else. But you go through these various different aspects of your life, and now I happen to be really focused on the health one. But we've gone through, all of these aspects, and that's the little taxonomy I sent you has got that. But
I'm sorry, the taxonomy you sent.
I just sent you a tag.
Oh, you did? Okay, I'm just checking my mail right now. Make sure that I have what.
Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned this. Oh, there it is. Good.
Yeah.
Very useful. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's and here we go. And I'll send you more. But this is the and then there's the article I sent.
Okay, and I'm just checking that. You just sent another one?
Yeah, this was the article on autobiographical memories, which is really the way that I think people have to. I think that's the best way to kind of think of their the way they're going to organize or think about their lives. Mm-hmm. Well, look, I've got to go, but we can talk more at some point. I'm around. I'm in a hotel hold up in New York City, and I don't want to go out particularly. I'm going out for lunch. I have to go out now. My wife had teed me up for a massage. So
good. Well, Yeah, I will probably I may well contact you with additional questions. Feel free to write or call if you think of anything that you think I
Yeah,
should have asked, or any. And
yeah,
as I say, this is great personal interest for me as well. So we may
sure.
end up talking even beyond the
Oh yeah,
article.
no, I think it is. We tried to put as much as we could in the when we stopped the book, we stopped the project in 2007. We said we're not done. It's really kind of only the beginning, and that's when we wrote the book. On Total Recall.
Yeah. Okay, I know you have to run. Hopefully, we will talk again. And in any case, you'll be getting email from me with your quotes to check.
Yeah,
And
and then question, just anything you want on question, any ideas or anything like that, just fire them off, and that'll be a quick way to get some reaction. Okay,
okay, well, thanks again.
okay, thanks.
Bye bye.
Yeah, bye.